Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Ryan Neo Bodenheimer. Did you used to have long hair like Keanu Reeves? Is that where you got your call sign?
So pretty much, they were gonna name me Brody,
Oh
out of Point
God,
Break.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like it was between Neo and Brody.
sure.
And my dad's a fighter pilot as well, and his call sign was Bodie, and he was
Mm.
kind of known in the community. So they were like, "All right, we're not gonna do that to you. We're not gonna make everybody confuse you with your dad." But yeah, they said I walked into the first fighter squadron, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?" And they're like, "Dude," and I was just excited. I was just happy to be there. I was a 23-year-old, hair on fire, becoming a fighter pilot. So I apparently I came across like Brody in Point Break.
Look, it
So
could be worse, you know.
way worse. I knew a guy named call sign Balls.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah.
Well, that's something. Um, yeah, I mean, you could have. There's a lot of Patrick Swayze characters you could be named after that aren't necessarily bad.
Could be a lot
Like
worse.
Dalton. Although Dalton wouldn't make a great call sign, but it would be pretty fucking funny. Um,
Oh, Patrick Swayze, what a legend, man.
yeah, yeah. R.I.P. Where did you grow up?
A military brat, so grew up all around the world. Mainly Colorado Springs. That's where I did high school, and then I went to Boulder for college. Did ROTC there, but yeah, I call Colorado Springs home. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in Alaska, Japan, Korea, Alabama, Idaho. Did the whole military brat thing. Lived in 12 different places. Moved to 12 different times. So yeah, that was my life growing
Mm.
up, and then decided to be a real rebel and do exactly what my dad did. So went right into it, and then I moved around a lot too. So I started after RTC, just moved all around in the military.
Where when you guys go to basic or whatever it is, I actually don't know if you're enlisting to become a pilot. What's that process like?
Yeah, so you put your name in the hat. So you go to RTC. There's Navy RTC, Marine RTC, Air Force RTC. Now Space Force has their own little detachment as well. But yeah, you put your name in the hat, say, hey, I want to be a fighter pilot or any type of pilot, and then you get racked and stacked throughout your time in RTC. And then I think my class there was like 30 of us wanting to be pilots, and about 25 of us got it. So not bad odds.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you make it into the pilot program or something like that, and then at what point does your bird get chosen for you or what you're going to fly? You know what I mean? Because some people, especially these days, people want to go fly jets and they end up as a drone pilot or some other bullshit. So it's one, what's that process like? And two, how do they decide? Is it just needs of the Air Force or what?
So yeah, it's really competitive, just probably like some of the schools you went through. But you go to pilot training. So I went to joint NATO pilot training, which is in Shepherd. It's North Texas, so it's kind of cool. It's so you compete for that too, right? So as
Mm.
I'm an RTC, they're like, okay, you got a pilot slot. Now what bases do you want to go to? And then they take the top of the class and they get their first choice, and then it goes down the line like that. So I was, worked my ass off and ended up being in the top three of my class. And so the top three of us got NATO jet training. So INJEP is what it's called. And then out of that one, it's pretty much all fighter pilots. So
Is that the
because
one
that
where they start on the L whatever? Um,
let's
uh,
say so that's the Navy, I
oh,
believe
okay, yeah,
for
yeah. What's that
yeah.
German plane, or is it? It's a German plane, right? Or
I'm
is
not
it
sure
or
if
is
it's
it French?
German.
I don't remember. It's some
Yeah.
European plane, the L something or other, and it's really L
L-39.
39. That's it. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
common in that not in the Air Force, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not in the Air Force. So the
Mm,
Air Force, so I was the last class of T-37s. So it's like a
mm-hmm.
old school Cessna jet. So the NATO training was the last base to lose that just because, the bureaucracy of transitioning to a different jet. So we
Sure,
had it
yeah.
the longest. And that jet's been around since I want to say like the 50s.
What is it like Cessna 182 or some shit like that?
That's where you start. So I actually did my private pilot training while I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps you get a pilot slot if you have a little bit of flight training, just because they know like, okay, you've been in a plane before, you're not completely intimidated by this thing, or you're not, so airsick that you actually want to keep going. So that's the first step they do. They send you to fly those little 182s. There's some, the Air Force Academy sends you to fly katanas, like these small little 2 or 4 seat propeller planes. And that's like the initial part. And then when you go to pilot training, that's when you step into like the T6 or the T-37. I think the Navy does the T6 now as well. And then the T-7, there's like a new jet trainer. I flew the T-38, but now there's a new one. But they're using both of those right now as they kind of transition. But yeah, it looks like a little mini fighter jet,
Mm.
and that's kind of where you start like the understanding of how a fighter jet's different from a Cessna 182 or a T-37. Like everything's happening at literally like 5 times the speed. Once you step into that fighter, it's a mini fighter. It's a T-38 for me, and they've adapted that T-38 to be an F-5, which is actually, has flown combat missions
Yeah.
before. But yeah, that's when you get into like the supersonic jet regime and you kind of learn how the handling characteristics of a supersonic jet can kick your ass compared to these, slower planes where you have more time to process and think. So that's really where you start to transition from being pilot to fighter pilot. And to me, it's a whole different ball game going from flying cargo aircraft or propeller planes to then jets where it's happening
Yeah,
fast.
I've got to discover that recently. Actually, I went up to Montana with Isaacman and his whole crew, and I flew on an Alpha jet, and
Yeah.
he gave me the business.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
It happens fast, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah. I enjoyed the G's and stuff. I mean, I can't imagine we got up too high, probably 3.5 or something at the most, taking tight turns, maybe a little bit higher,
okay.
but I wasn't a big fan, so we did the flyover over Montana State's football game, and we racetracked for like 15 minutes beforehand. I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, dude,
This is testing my stomach's fortitude more than anything we've done so far.
for sure.
Just like it's like being on a fucking merry-go-round, but you're pulling 2 Gs every time you take a turn.
Yeah, seriously. And you're not in control, right? You're in the back seat,
Yeah,
so
that
you're not
sucks.
flying. So
Yeah. Yeah, he asked me like halfway through. I'm like, "Oh my god, this sucks." And he's like, "Well, why don't you?" He's like, "Why don't you take the controls and that way you know what you're doing, or you can." It didn't. None of that shit worked for me, but I did have a good time. My girlfriend liked it a lot more than me, but she was in an L39, which is considerably slower.
okay.
Also,
Gotcha.
didn't racetrack for 15 minutes. But yeah, it's a marked difference between any aircraft I've been on, from obviously commercial and military aircraft, but also my company commander in the 82nd had Cessna, and we used to fly around in that a good bit. I've flown on a lot of small planes,
Nice.
and yeah, it's not even it's there are some, and the pathway works this way for a reason, but there are some of those planes that aren't quite as fast, but they have similar controls, and that's one of the reasons they're in the pipeline for you to learn on this one than that one. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, the same principles apply, and now especially it's a little more streamlined. So going from the T6, which is it's a turbo prop, so it's got a prop, but it's got a lot more maneuverability than the T-37. It's got more ability to fly formation more precisely. So yeah, it ties in a little better. So they're kind of trying to make that pipeline a little more seamless. But did you and your girlfriend, did you go up at the same time in the
No,
jets?
no. I went. Uh, yeah, I went for, or she went first on the slower one, and I went after that.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a
They
good
didn't let you
time.
guys dogfight or something. That'd be fun.
No, but I mean, that's something in the future. So Isaacman was in the process of putting his MiG back together at the time,
Okay.
and he was obsessed with that thing. He still is. He loves it because it's fast as
Awesome.
shit. I mean, the uh, the Alpha Jet is like what, 8,300 pounds of force or something like that, and then the MiG is 38,000. So it's
Okay.
like
Way
orders of
stronger.
magnitude stronger. Yeah, it's like all right, cool, man. He loves that shit. But yeah,
That's awesome.
it's really interesting to when you go on these different aircraft, you can almost see the evolution of air travel in general, from like a Cessna to a turboprop, which still has a gas turbine, but to drive a propeller. But it's technically, is it technically a jet? It's a jet engine, but it's
Yeah,
using the
it's a jet
prop
engine
still.
with a propeller attached to it,
Yeah,
basically.
which is like kind of like if we were talking about evolution, that would be a missing link thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost. But and now obviously we've got some pretty cool shit coming out, including this 6th gen fighter that's getting built right now with this full AI suite. What do you know about that?
Yeah, I've done a few videos on that. I mean, to me, it's awesome. I think it's the next evolution and adaptation, and I'm sure they really sat down and hashed it out. Hey, does this thing have a pilot? Does it not have a pilot? Does it team up with CCAs, the Combat Collaborative
Mm,
Aircraft? And when you look at that jet, the F-47, that thing is built to me, it's built for one specific purpose, and that's the South China Sea. So
mm,
South China Sea deterrence, kind of keeping China a little more honest, knowing that there's a jet that can cross long swaths of that South China Sea. I mean, the Raptor, yeah, I'm not sure the exact number, but it's somewhere close to about like 800 miles would be like a combat radius. And
mm,
there's the South China Sea is way bigger than that. So, and if you want to operate combat and do things, where you're using a lot more fuel, you're not just going from point to point. You need a fighter that's actually built for that type of a scenario. And now with the adaptations of just, if you even look at commercial aviation, the way that engines are more efficient, this new F-47, it's got the next generation advanced propulsion engine. So this thing's supposed to be incredibly efficient for long swaths, but then you're able to kick it into a mode where, all right, now this thing can turn and burn. It can do the traditional things that like an F-15 or an F-22 do.
mm,
So it's really a lot of the the adaptations, like you said, AI is huge, but really the engines in this thing, they have to kind of shift their mindset and have different phases of this engine to where it can not only just, dogfight, turn and burn, launch missiles, high altitude, but it can transition from long distance endurance
mm.
to then, kicking ass in a dogfight. Ideally, you never get into a dogfight with it, but you want it to be able to do that if you have to. So I look at it like it's a two-pronged evolution in fighter aviation, and that is the AI suites that are integrated that allow it to talk to these, andurils just right now. I mean, they might have done it like a few days ago, but
Mm.
they're basically in flight testing for their FQ-44, which is a CCA, Combat Collaborative Aircraft. Super badass looking plane for your viewers if they've seen it. I mean, you can just Google it. It's a really good looking aircraft, and that is kind of the thing that I think is going to change fighter aviation the most is being able to team it up with some sort of a loyal wingman that basically just does whatever you want, never says no, never out of position, doesn't complain.
Mm.
Uh, Team that up with this new fighter, and then you have these advanced engines, so you're getting this thing to places, where you probably couldn't before without a lot of tanker support. But in the South China Sea, the way that China's threats work now, their SAM nets, their surface to air missile
Mm.
nets, are so big that if you bring tankers in to try to support F-22s,
Yeah.
F-35s, now you're in a whole world of hurt where these tankers can be targeted from hundreds of miles away. So it changes the way you think, where, okay, traditional F-22s, F-35s that need all those tankers back there. Well, hey, you can't have these anymore because they're going to get shot down. So the tanker guys probably love this new F-47 as well.
F-47 is pretty. I mean, yeah, all that stuff you're talking about is stuff that I haven't really been familiar with. So, is there some design on having Anduril's AAV attached to it somehow, or what? I mean, it almost sounds like Falcon and his little Red Wing thing that's on his back from whatever the Marvel series shit, but quite a bit
Yeah.
bigger. Actually, this is like a full scale drone, right?
Yeah, it's a fighter capable drone. Kind of a quick backstory it's really awesome for me to see this evolution in these CCAs, the Combat Collaborative Aircraft. I was sitting in a room in pilot training, so back to the inject, you're sitting there, your hair's on fire, you're learning about all these fighter jets. And what the fighter community does is they bring through like a show and tell, basically like a pet the jet situation where there's people from every weapon system that'll fly their jet into Shepherd Air Force Base at some point and kind of pitch like, hey, you should want to fly the F-15E because blah, 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 because of
Mm.
this. And they're basically trying to get the best talent into their community possible. So, like I was saying, if you're the top of your class, then you get to choose. So, the top of your class might choose the A10 because they learned about the A10 when they came in and gave a description on it, and they might not have chosen the A10 before. So, we're sitting in this room, and all these fighter pilots are like, hey, here's the F-15, here's the F-16. And something really stood out to me at the end. And this guy gets up and he's from DARPA. And he's like, yeah, all these fighter jets, all this is cool, but here's what some of you are probably going to fly in the future. And I just want to put this in your brain right now to maybe look at opportunities for this. And he put up on the screen this basically looked like a like a sim cockpit with a 180 degree screen. The screen kind of wrapped up, went above you. And he's like, yeah, one day some of you might fly this drone that's going to pull 30 Gs instead of 9 Gs. So he's like, yeah, that's cute. Yeah, F-22 guys, cute. 9 Gs. Yeah, yeah. But if you're going up against someone sitting in this cockpit at
Mm.
1 G on the ground, that then their extension of, their of the controls is attached to a drone that can pull 30 Gs, good luck. And I just that kind of sat in the back of my mind. I was like, damn, that is badass. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you want something that can pull 30 Gs or whatever the number is? And so I went through my whole fighter career, that was always a talk and a discussion. And, we had like sessions where we would, maybe give information to engineers on what these things should do, what they shouldn't do, or what we would want as a fighter pilot working with these things. But I never really got, I obviously never got to fly that thing. So now looking at Anduril and other companies creating this thing that I saw, this like Frankenstein looking drone,
Mm.
when you look at it now and you just see the images of the Anduril
Mm.
Fury is what it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
It just looks like it's ready to dogfight. I mean, it looks hyper maneuverable. It looks fast. Everything I can tell, it looks like it's low observable. So it's got some stealth properties. So you team up five of those things with your F-35 or your F-22 or an F-47, and it opens up all new realms of
Mm.
things that we were always told not to do. So as you can tell, I get a little bit excited when I
No, no, dude. The
think
first
about
time, so I'm excited about the AI part of it because I'm a fucking nerd in that way, and we'll talk some more about that and about my buddy's company, Spartan Forge, that's doing some stuff like that too. But
yeah,
when I first saw Fury, I just saw an image small on my phone. I'm like, wait a minute,
yeah,
what is that? Because it was a GIF, so it was spinning. It was showing the whole thing, and I was like, what is that? So I go to the website. I'm like, there's a fucking afterburner on this drone. What am I looking at
yeah,
here? Holy shit!
yeah,
Like
totally new. Like,
that is insane. And it can
yeah,
you're saying they're projecting this thing can pull 30 Gs?
this is just a number that I'm pulling out of somewhere. It's not an exact number. I'm just looking at it from an airframe perspective and thinking of like, okay, if you're going to go through all this trouble to make a non-piloted drone, why not make sure it can do something insane like that? I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure that number is classified.
Yeah, sure. I'm
But
sure
yeah,
it is. Yeah, but this is one of the problems with space flight as well, and it's the solution that we're coming up to now with unmanned stuff are probably going to play a big role in that in space travel in the future because many issues. One is we're a fucking meat sack with bones inside of it, so we don't respond well to a lot of things like direct exposure to radiation and cosmic rays, which are like little cosmic ray. If you don't know, is like and essentially let's think of it as an atom that's traveling at 99% of the speed of the light right at your face. Our magnetic field bounces most of them. Some of them get captured in the atmosphere. A couple come through, right?
yeah,
After the Apollo missions, they went on to look inside the helmets and they could see little, like under a microscope, they could see little grooves in their helmets where the cosmic rays were hitting them. So that's not sweet.
yeah, that's not good.
We're going to have to figure that shit out.
Yeah,
And also just time and maneuverability, right? I mean, it's hard enough to get out of the atmosphere as it is.
sure,
Like we have this idea, we're trying to defeat a lot of these problems right now. One is the cost of freight through space, and a big part of that is the fuel it takes to get up there. I mean, if you look at one of these rockets, it's mostly fuel, and then it's ridiculous.
sure,
So there
yeah,
have been all these over the years. There have been all these like insane ideas. One of them was a space elevator where there was like a big cable attached to the Earth, and you rode it up like an elevator. There's been a lot of crazy stuff, but something like this that you could be inside completely shielded, or even in maybe stasis where you're getting pushed through the atmosphere, like to deliver human cargo at least. something that's either automated or controlled from the ground would be quite a bit better solution than what we're doing right now. Because right now they're just strapped in, fucking, hoping for the best, and that's a wild ass situation right there.
Yeah, and the radiation.
Yeah.
It's called the Van Ryan radiation
Mm,
belt, right?
mm,
So that's a whole thing too to figure out. Like, all right,
yeah.
how is this going to affect people? Is this sustainable to get
Mm,
people back and forth through this? Is it a one and done? You train these pilots to go up, and now you can only do it once because of the radiation. Like,
yeah.
that's a lot of resources to get to do one trip with someone, or maybe who knows? I mean, maybe that radiation's gotten stronger, and now you're dealing with that. But yeah, I
Mm,
think it's something that pilots have had to kind of come to terms with. I mean, you saw in the Air Force in it was like the 2010s where there was this kind of this battle between the fighter, like mafia is what we
mm,
call it, and then the drone reality, right? So all these fighter pilots kind of fought it. They're like, no, we're always going to have a pilot in the cockpit. And like honestly, I felt that too because I was biased. I'm like, well, I want to be Top Gun my whole life. I don't want
mm.
to have be replaced by a unmanned system, but man, you look at the reality of what you're facing and the SAMs that China has, and sending up a whole bunch of F-22s or F-35s, and that's all you got. You got pink bodies in there. You're trying to outmaneuver SAMs that are insanely capable. Like, you got to at some point let the pride go and say, all right, this is going to be more effective. This is going to be better. This is going to save lives.
Mm.
If we're trying to support troops on the ground or someone that, is deep in enemy territory and we can't get there because we keep getting shot down, like that's not fair to the Navy. It's not fair to the Army. You got to let the pride go. But it's definitely something that's been hard for the fighter pilot community.
Yeah, I mean that this is and again, I think there's a parallel with the space stuff too because we've been doing it the same way for so long, and it's been until Elon. Obviously, it's been very stagnant as well.
Yeah,
And that radiation problem, we think that's probably the biggest problem we have. Everything else is logistics, which you can those are solvable problems, but when you're dealing with nature, it's a little bit more complicated.
for sure.
Like I think the best solution I've seen to it so far is multi-layered, and it's going to require something like you mentioned, the different stages required of an F-47, the ability to get there and then do your work and then get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know, to get, I guess, deeper into the enemy's territory or whatever. But the best solution I think I've seen so far is some way to around the spacecraft. Well, you have to do in stages. First, you got to get out, right? You got to get out into outer space in the first place, which requires about 25,000 miles per hour, and that's a whole situation in its own. But then when you get in space, there's no resistance necessarily. I mean, there's resistance in the form of gravity if you get near large objects, but mostly it's you can use that to your advantage. But radiation is the issue. So now you have to convert somehow. And I think the best ways that I've seen are that something that spins really fast to create a electromagnetic field, right? Because and then inside of that thing that's spinning around you, probably some kind of water cylinder of some sort, maybe even heavy water,
Hmm.
because heavy like water and heavy water block alpha and beta radiation really well. Not so good with gamma radiation, but electromagnetism will block gamma radiation because that's what gamma radiation is, right?
Yeah.
So it's like and also if the craft itself is spinning, you might be able to solve the gravity problem as well, right? You may be able to create 1G up there, which is all this stuff is super interesting to me. And none of it's the marriage between space flight and earth flight or so it's different, but we're solving a lot of the same problems. It's always fascinating to me to see what they're solving terrestrially versus extraterrestrially.
Yeah, for sure. And they can kind of play into each other. Like you said, the engines having adaptability, and you start getting up higher and higher in the atmosphere. I mean, when you look at Top Gun Maverick when he's in that Dark Star, trying to get to Mach 9 plus, you have to totally change the way that those engines will work. And if you want that jet to go Mach 9 plus and then slow down and do some things at slower speeds, now you get into the cycle engines where you have like a traditional jet engine, similar to a traditional jet engine, and then it kicks into like a scramjet,
Mm.
and it can basically do three different things well. I mean, that's super complicated, but we're at a point now where the technology's kind of demanding that. I mean, why
Mm.
build a jet that can't go hypersonic at this point? If that's your goal, is to get it to up into near outer space. And I mean, I'm sure there's some amazing things you can do in fighter aviation. The higher you can get and launch missiles, the more effective you're going to be. So that it gives you what's called a longer stick.
Mm.
And so all these engines, I think they have to be thinking of, all right, what's going to get them up to, the highest altitude possible. And then that technology is, I can't see why that couldn't play into getting, people into space as well.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Top Gun Maverick. What happens if you punch out going Mach 10?
Oh, dude, if you don't have a capsule, you're basically vaporized. Like you're gonna turn to like pudding.
Yeah, yeah. He
But yeah, if you
didn't,
have a cap
right? I
if you
don't
have a
think.
capsule, I mean,
Mm.
you're fine. There's ways to design it. There's an old bomber called the XB-70. I've done a video on this one, and they built it. DARPA was a big part of it, and then they realized like how complex it was, and it was actually in a midair. So they were doing a photo shoot with this thing, and the thing looks awesome. I mean, it looks like it's built for, far in the future.
Hmm.
The wings kind of kink down on the ends. It's incredibly fast. I want to say it's, on the same par with the SR-71, but it was a bomber
Oh, wow.
specifically focused to be a bomber. Yeah, I think, yeah, don't quote me on that, but the speed on it is relatively insane. And when you look at the actual structure of the plane, the way it's designed, the cockpit, so it's kind of flat when you're going slow. So it gives the pilots the ability to actually see. So if you're coming into land or you're taking off, the cockpit kind of looks like this. And then as you get supersonic, the cockpit goes and it extends out so that it's more flush with the flow of the wind. But something like that was way ahead of its time. And yeah, it might be something we see moving forward.
Yeah, that's sweet. It's yeah, it's almost to our tiny, fragile human brain counterintuitive to think about just being in a small capsule would eliminate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about when you're. There's something about relative speed, and it's happening to you right now, where the Earth is rotating 1,000 miles per hour right now,
Yeah.
and we're rotating around the sun at like 16,000 miles per hour, or some shit like that. It's like, yeah, you can jump up in the air and you don't land over there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in a enclosed space, and we are in a closed system here. Uh, you are traveling at relative speed. So jumping up in the air doesn't add positive or negative speed to anything. So just being in the capsule, it's not just about the force you're experiencing. It's also about the fact that because force via like wind, the atmosphere hitting you will definitely fuck you up. I mean, you've stood in wind before, but it isn't just about that. It's about leaving an enclosed space and going to a non-enclosed space, moving at that speed. It will rip you to shreds. It's like getting near a
Yeah.
black hole or something.
Totally. Yeah, and so so in that XB-70, unfortunately, they were doing a photo shoot and one of the guys got sucked into the one of the wingtip vortices and it was just so strong that because of the way the wings are shaped, the normal wingtip vortices didn't apply. It's totally different. And
Mm.
he gets distracted. There's a plane coming overhead, another test aircraft. So he's probably looking up at it. He gets sucked in and goes over top of the XB-70, rips off the tail. And so the two pilots in the XB-70 are kind of fluttering. The jets doesn't have any vertical tails for, 30 seconds, and then it just goes into a flat spin and they have to eject out of it. And the way that you have to eject out of that thing is you had to push yourself back into the capsule. The capsule's kind of
Mm.
behind you. You go, boom, you push yourself back in, and then you basically pull a shield down, and then you eject. But that was in the 70s. I think it was in the late 70s. So the technology wasn't Gucci. It wasn't like super precise. So one of the guys doesn't get fully into the capsule before it ejects out. So obviously that didn't end well for him.
Mm.
Actually, he might not have been able to even get out because it wasn't fully clamshelled in. But yeah, that kind of thing is something that takes a lot of resources. So if you're building a supersonic bomber, now you got to think about, okay, the windscreen's got to pop up for these humans that are inside of it. The capsule's got to work perfectly. At what point are we putting all these resources into these capsules and ejection scenarios when we could be putting that into the AI brain, the functionality of this
Mm.
thing? Maybe it's being controlled from the ground. So yeah, I think it's totally changing the way that we're thinking about combat and military aviation.
Yeah, and again, another parallel to space travel because the robots or whatever it is we create to send out and ahead of us are always going to make it farther than we can. Just
Sure.
like we have two. Well, no, the other one hasn't gone out yet. We Voyager 1 is outside of our solar system now. It is an I guess, a galactic object at this point. It's traveling through the Milky Way now. But that's just how it is, right? Like, there's no way. One time, it's been out there for 45 years or some shit like that. And then, of course, there's just the ability to get it up to speed, which is really interesting to me because uh, they used quite a bit of science, I guess, math to make that thing get up to speed like it is using the gravity. I think of, let's see, first it was Mars and then Saturn, or no, Mars then Jupiter to get to Saturn, just using a slingshot, which is pretty
Yeah,
crazy because you got to get it right.
got to get
I
it
mean,
right.
like
And there's
otherwise
like certain times.
you either like go get shot out into space or you crash into the planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's certain it's like that math is incredible, right? Because
Mm.
there's only certain times. I think there's like two opportunities per year, maybe it's less than that, where you if you're trying to get to Mars to actually use the gravity to get there, there's only a couple windows
Oh,
throughout the year.
there's a window every 2 years for Mars.
2 years. Okay.
That's to make sure that it's a 9 month trip and not a 2 year trip. So if you want to get there in 9 months, there's only one window every other year. Which is
Yeah,
wild as hell, man. But that's just the way it
it's
is.
crazy.
That's another thing. Well, that's not something we can defeat unless we have some new form of travel that's that we're not even thinking of right now.
Right.
So I want to talk about the new tech in the form of AI a little bit. So you've been a fighter pilot in combat before, and we have controllers and JTACs and our version of ATC and all this other stuff that's happening to deconflict airspace and put people in the right spot and then give everybody as much information about where everybody else is and what they're seeing as possible. And it is and then 13 Foxes too, fire support guys on the ground with infantry dudes. It is a very imperfect system.
Sure.
And there's a ping, there's a delay between information. There's also the end user, the receiver's ability to contextualize that information and put it on the map in his brain because you can't just draw it every single time it happens. For ground elements, we've had Blue Force Tracker, and it's okay, I guess. And now we're seeing from the ground, there's a couple of different companies competing for it. Anduril's one, they've got Eagle Eye, but there's a couple of other companies as well that are developing stuff. And it's basically a HUD. It's an AR, augmented reality overlay, which is something that a HUD is something that pilots are familiar with, but not soldiers so much. We haven't really dealt with too much of that except for seeing it in movies. But this isn't just a HUD. It's AI driven. So think of it as Blue Force Tracker on steroids, and the F-47 is going to lean pretty heavy into that. I mean, it's going to be plugged. We're trying to develop it as such as it's all these things are kind of plugged in and automatic with each other so I can get a clear view of the battle space. And then all the way down to the ground level with Anduril and a couple of these other companies, you're talking about my buddy who's over there who sees an enemy sneaking around the back of a building can mark that dude, right? And
Yeah.
now my AR can my augmented reality or my HUD can track that dude as he's moving because he's still in line of sight from the other guy who doesn't necessarily have a shot on him, but I can set up on that dude and pop him when he comes around the corner. That's some video
Right.
game shit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I look at it like so when I was over in Afghanistan, we had Link 16 and then like kind of the next system past
Mm.
that it was like a 50,000 foot perspective, and that's all you really needed in the F-15E is the an F-35, F-22 if you're able to see a rough situation because you're talking to the JTAC, so you get the friendly position. You maybe get some target coordinates from the JTAC, or you've got some pre-planned targets from, higher headquarters or
Mm.
whatever. And the way that it synced up with our screens and my JHEMIX helmet, my joint helmet mounted queuing system was awesome. I mean, you could look outside, see the friendlies were a circle, see the bad guys or the targets, those are triangles, and then on your screen it's all color coded. So green circles, that could be ground elements, could be other fighters. And then, you would see your own assets like an AWACS behind you, where all that stuff is. And then you could get a directed target from Pyramid, it was the name of the higher headquarters at the time. And there'd be times where they're like, hey, this is a very time sensitive target, you're already cleared hot. There's no friendlies in the area. Here it is, boom, and it draws a line from your jet to that target, and it's pretty sweet the way it syncs up. You can basically take that if you want. You can take wherever that target is and just load those coordinates right into a JDAM, and then
Mm,
boom, get it off the jet quick. So I don't know. I look at it. I don't know. I guess this is a question for you too. It's almost like, they started at the 50,000 foot perspective, and that was, quote unquote easier. I don't know, just because, it's not as detailed maybe. And now you take it into eagle eye, you take
mm.
it down on, into a more precise information delivery system. And now you're syncing up with a drone that's overhead, and that drone's feeding information to your eagle eye, and then your buddy's eagle eye is feeding information to yours.
Mm.
So to me, it definitely seems more complex. It needs to be way more precise and, down to the inch. You need to know where that
Yeah.
threat is. If it's behind, they're behind a connex, walking, you need to know exactly where that is. Whereas for me, we could get those coordinates pumped to us in that target and then queue in our targeting pod from miles away, and then really, gnat's ass and hone in exactly where it is.
Mm.
So then we're kind of taking that burden of that exact detail, and we're just, doing some pilot shit and making it work.
Yeah, I mean
So,
that's the computational power, right? Is always going to be the solution to, well, not always, but almost usually when we've butted up against technological issues, brute forcing with computational power has been the solution to it. Once we have a modality that actually works. Early AI, they tried to pump it up with computational power, and it didn't work because it was stupid still. Now it's quite a
yeah,
bit better, and we're finding that this ratio of computational power to efficient output is pretty much on par with what we expect now. So now we're in an energy race, right? Which the Trump administration talks about a lot. And the problem for the ground level is compute. I mean, think of it in terms of geospatial intelligence. Something has to be, for me as an infantryman in close quarters within 100 meters or so, for something to be relevant to me, it has to be precise location wise, and it also has to be now. Otherwise, that's old information that can get me killed, right? So
sure.
if I think the guy's over there and he's really over there now, and I go this way and turn right now, he's got my back and I'm dead. So it's definitely an issue of you want to keep things before you deliver this to the end user. It needs to be precise and immediate. And it also, to your point, yeah, it definitely needs to be as simple as possible, because I love my infantry brothers, but we eat a lot of crayons and do a lot of dumb shit. So it's, I think you're definitely right about that. There's a lot more margin for error when I fire my M4 or a rifle or a saw or machine gun or something like that. I've got within 1 second, typically, unless it's a sniper round, I've got positive feedback on whether or not my rounds are landing or not. You, as a
Yeah,
fighter pilot, have quite a bit more time, especially if you're firing long range rockets and missiles and stuff like that, or long range missiles rather. You've got quite a bit more time. You can fire that thing, fuck off, and then guide it in, or whatever else is going to happen there. So there's quite a bit more margin for error, I guess. That gnat's ass theory, where you can get me in the area and then I can fine tune it in. You know what I mean? That's not, you can't do that with a bullet yet. We'll see.
right.
They've made some advancements with artillery, some GPS guided artillery. I don't know that I want to live in a world where it's like Judge Dredd, where I can program my bullet to go to a specific place and then just fire. It takes no, the skill's gone at that point, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a good or a reasonable, not, I guess you're not complaining really. It's not a complaint, but it's a reasonable thing to think about. Like this, before you deliver this to the guy on the ground, it has to be exact. Otherwise, it's going to get people fucked up.
for sure. Yeah, I'm sure that testing that's going on right now. I'm,
Mm.
I'm guessing, like, even though we see this public release of the Eagle Eye, that's probably been being tested with the Army for months, if not, a year or more.
Mm. Well, looking forward to seeing that.
Same.
Speaking of technology and all this stuff, tell me about aliens. Where are they? Where can I find one?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, there's rumors right now that the technology from some of these crafts that have been, donated
Mm.
is being intertwined into certain systems. So I think that's like David Grush, his complaint is not that these technologies are out there, but that they're only being given to one contractor. So I can see that. I mean, if just insert, whatever contractor, Lockheed is the one that has the access to this, no other contractors have it. That's a monopoly that's now going to make them get contracts over every other defense contractor out there. So So yeah, I don't know. I could see that. I could see that argument. I mean, I've definitely seen some weird things flying around, a couple different times. So uh, it's definitely got my wheels turning. I mean, I've got my own perspectives on it, but I don't know. There's a lot I think to unpack there.
Well, what weird stuff have you seen?
So the first one, I've seen some like basically what it to me looked like some sort of prototypes of drones.
Mm,
Actually flying on the Thunderbirds, I had like a close pass with. It looked to me like a triangle, like a mini triangle sized fighter jet. That's the best way I can put it. So it was out near, it's in the Nevada desert,
mm,
middle of nowhere. And yeah, this thing just, it was almost like it was the alien version of me. It was, it was like a little mini fighter jet that kind of did a close pass with us. And it just looked like it was like a Cybertruck, you know how that like stainless steel
yeah, yeah.
unfinished look. That's the best way I can put it. Had a triangle shape, no cockpit, and flew past me. We merged at probably, 700 knots of closure. And I was just like, whoa, this thing goes past. So who knows what that is? I mean, that looked a little more conventional.
Mm,
So it could be just testing, but my thought is like, why test it on a Thunderbird jet? Well, it doesn't make sense to me to if it's our technology, why put that within 50 feet of a Thunderbird jet
mm.
when there's so many better ways to test that? So that made me think, okay, maybe not ours, but maybe some other country or who knows, some like it could be just some super advanced private individual
Yeah.
or funded from some place that's, not a nation. I don't know, but it was
Mm.
definitely weird. Definitely got my attention. Uh, so
Well, I
yeah,
mean, they
some of
could be
that.
they could be testing its collections capability, right? What's the signature size for an F-15? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, the radar cross section.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure, like 18 meters squared or
yeah.
something like that.
But it's
Something like
like
a
it's quite a bit bigger than let's say an F-22 is the size of what, like a baseball or some shit like that. It's
yeah,
quite
that
a bit
sounds
smaller. Or
right.
maybe
There's some
that's
charts.
maybe that's a
Yeah,
35. I don't remember, but it's quite a bit smaller now than it was when the F-15 came out years and years and years ago. So maybe
yeah,
that could be something too. It's very interesting to me. A lot of people get fooled by these. I say fooled by thinking it's something that's physically impossible. You know what I mean? Like, how could that possibly be true? And no one could ever do that. If we're talking about drones that can pull upwards of 30 Gs, some of this stuff can definitely be done, right? I mean, that's there's no question about that. People don't understand basic physics principles like parallaxes and stuff like that. Like if you said you intersect at 700 knots. If you're moving at 700 knots this way and he's moving at 700 knots this way, like the relative speed that you see with your eyeballs makes it look like he's going orders of magnitude faster than he really is, or banking orders of magnitude faster than he really is. In reality, it's this principle called parallaxes. But there is some very fishy shit going on out there. I think it's probably like you said, it's probably drone tech from advanced companies or countries or something like that. Some stuff is a little harder to explain. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody's figured out how to travel fast, faster than we know we're capable of.
sure.
We haven't made as far as defeating defeating space and time when it comes to travel. We haven't made any real advancements in a very long time. We've gotten faster at doing what we already do, but we haven't really figured out anything new. I think Newton's laws of motion were used to land on the fucking moon, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
those are 400 years old or so, or yeah, give or take at the time. It's like we haven't made any huge leaps in that, and we're due for one. We're due for one at some point. And you got to think about some of these civilizations. There's 2 trillion galaxies in the known universe, and the known universe also looks flat. Which, if you're standing on a sphere, if it looks flat to you, that means it's way bigger than what it looks like. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
we could be talking about trillions of years old civilizations or whatever the fuck. So we have no idea what it is. I see no reason to believe it's aliens specifically, though. I just haven't seen any evidence for that.
Yeah. I mean, it almost makes more sense to me that it's it's our own stuff, but
Mm.
I mean, I start to think about these crafts coming here and crashing, and I'm like, if you're that good of a pilot, you've traveled thousands of light years to get here, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, well, I happened to suck this day and I crashed my jet in the Nevada desert. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I don't know. Something about that just seems weird to me.
Yeah.
That's just maybe it's my fighter pilot ego saying like, if I made it all the way to the target area, I'm not going to crash my
Yeah. No
jet.
shit. No shit. That's
But
harder to
these
believe.
the talk of like portals or there's
Hmm?
like maybe it's our technology hundreds of thousands of years in the future, and there's some like time rifts that, it's completely different ways of thinking about aliens and UFOs. That honestly makes more sense to me. And
Hmm.
if these things are appearing and specifically near Area 51, and why wouldn't they just appear in downtown New York City?
Hmm.
Like they're appearing right where these things are being developed and in secret places on the globe. Like why is that happening? So to
Yeah.
me, it makes more sense that there's some sort of a portal or something completely different from what we've thought about with traditional UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I think there's certainly something else. I mean, one of our, I was talking about whatever the next leap is in our ability to move from one place to another. One of them is for space travel, the ability to get some high percentage of the speed of light, getting a piece of machinery that has mass, by the way, which causes a lot of problems. If you're just traveling through the vacuum of space, it causes a lot of problems. You just get heavier and heavier and heavier. The faster you go,
Yeah,
that's relativity. One of the theories that could defeat that is to manipulate gravity in front of and behind the spacecraft, right? To warp gravity so that it's not. I think they mentioned it in one of the Star Trek movies, the latest iteration with whatever the fuck, whatever the series was with Chris Pine was.
okay, yeah,
They talk about it's not the craft that's moving; it's actually the universe that's moving technically, and you're just kind of sitting still and you're warping gravity behind that. That's one of the more advanced theories on how we might be able to accomplish shit like that. I love tech like that. I think it's really cool, but we don't know anything. We know
yeah,
like the amount of stuff we know versus what's available to know is we're not even a type 1 species yet, right? A type 1 species is able to harness the energy of their planet, and
yeah,
then a type 2 species is able to harness the energy of or maybe it's A and B, but whatever. Type 2 species can harness the energy of its sun, like its whole
sure,
solar system basically, and then so on, and then galaxy, and then so on. We're not even a type 1 yet. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We're still figuring shit out. But any of these new leaps in technology are super interesting to me, especially when they have when they have two stages. One is that this is something that's going to make life better in the future, but also something that's going to be really helpful for us right now in some way or another. I don't know if you're familiar with my buddy. He's a former TFO guy. He runs Spartan Forge. It's a AI company, and veteran. He's a veteran in the army. It's a hunting and mapping application to give precision and reliability in the field. So he uses like geospatial tools like historical imagery from public universities that's public information, LIDAR, configurable topographical maps, slope angles, weather analysis, terrain emphasis tools, all this other stuff to include UAV imagery that covers about 60% of all U.S. hunting property, right?
Hmm.
Already,
Nice.
already, and it's kind of excuse me, it's kind of still in its infancy to some degree. And you use it for hunting. Like
Awesome.
there's,
That's cool.
we live in a world now where we're not necessarily hunting for survival, but it is good for you to get out, like, and not just to eat the meat, but the process of going to harvest your own meat as well. I think
Absolutely.
one of the
Yeah.
reasons that testosterone is falling so precipitously is because we're not doing dude shit anymore, just like a wild pig in captivity. We're starting to lose our tusk. So
Yeah.
giving somebody the ability to go do that thing but not have to spend 2 weeks looking, because I don't have 2 weeks. I have to go back to work. I only have this weekend out of the whole
Right.
fall to go hunt. There's no guarantee for success ever, but this definitely increases your fucking odds when you have.
Yeah.
In addition, they have like a custom built LLM, like a large language model, like ChatGPT. It's built for people that think like us, hunters, gun
Nice.
people, stuff like you're into military and tech and stuff like that. So it's a really good company. I like places that do stuff like that where like you're talking about the 47 having stages where it's good. That's on a micro level, but on a macro level, something that's both good for us right now and also is going to be good for us in the future. I love seeing tech like that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Technology that it's like technology that's advancing us, but actually bringing us closer to our roots, like giving us the ability to tie in closer to our roots. I mean, it's like a fish finder, right?
Hmm.
Like, hey, you're gonna use a fish
Yeah.
finder, you're gonna go out and make the most use of your time.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember getting my first deer with my dad and just the lessons that I learned from that hunt and then eating that meat and being grateful for it. Like, dude, that formed me as a young man, probably, you know, more than most things I did as a young guy. I mean, this puts you in a place where you're tied into some ancestral
Hmm.
warrior mindsets, and you can't really replace that with anything. No video game is going to give people that experience. I mean, that's kind of why I started my channel was, I was like, I started on TikTok and I saw like the Island Boys or whatever, these dudes like,
Oh my God. So
and I was like,
that's your
wait.
inspiration, huh?
Well, my inspiration was to
Ah,
defeat that because that's what's being pumped into the mind of kids. I was like, wait a second, this is what like young kids are seeing and they're idolizing this. No, no, no.
yeah.
I want to put the fighter pilot mindset, the fighter pilot ethos into the brains of these young kids so they know that they can go out and do badass things like become Maverick or become Rooster, like so to me, it was the evolution of seeing how social media was melting the brains of people that made me want to put cool shit on social media that involved the spirit and the lore of
Mm,
fighter aviation. So
yeah. Yeah, it
we,
matters. It matters who our heroes are in a culture, right? Because that's who kids especially tend to emulate. There's been some concerted effort by this group or that group to make in media to make dads insufferable buffoons that are not to be
yeah,
respected, and then masculinity as well. Our heroes in the 1950s, our heroes were people who were like Jimmy Stewart, Ted Williams, people like that who left very successful acting and sports careers to go fight the Nazis, right? Or I
awesome.
guess a more recent example would be Pat Tillman. And
Yeah,
when people look at somebody like that and it's like, hey, this guy didn't have to do any of this shit, and he chose to because this country's worth it. That's the message, is that this country's worth it. And as G.K. Chesterton said, men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because men loved her, and that's the kind of investment we need. And how many fucking people joined the Navy and Air Force because of Top Gun? How many people joined the Navy because of Charlie Sheen? How many people joined the
yeah,
Army because of Black Hawk Down and all this stuff? This shit matters. It really does
yeah,
matter who's out there communicating about what America is to kids.
yeah. I think media lately, let's say over the past 5 to 10 years, has kind of neutered the warrior mindset in movies,
Mm.
films, and now I feel a bit of a resurgence coming back where people are like, no, we believe we want to go watch Top Gun Maverick. I mean, that's why Top Gun Maverick crushed it, billions of dollars in the box office. I mean, to me, that was a big statement of we're done with this weird like way that we're told that warriors in the military should be, and we want it to be how it actually is and how it feels authentic and real in our hearts. And I think that was kind of to me, it was a really it reinstilled my faith that okay, America, the world, we all want this. We want the Charlie Sheens, we want the Tom Cruises, we want these guys to actually play these roles that inspire us to do cool shit in our own life because that's not just a military thing. I feel like that stuff filters down and seeps into everybody's day. You could be out there driving a truck and you just feel a little more proud of providing for your family, or you feel like your mission matters. And to me, that's what we need more of.
Mm. Yeah, that's it's very simple. You know what I mean? Um, and sometimes it's almost like I like talking to pilots a lot because you guys are pretty much all autistic. Just
Yeah,
with like
definitely.
all the checklists and attention to detail, right? So start at the desired result. We want a society that's safe. I mean, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, okay, what type of personalities do we need to create that? Obviously, even if I'm somebody on the left, or somebody who's more effeminate or more empathetic or whatever you want to call it, you realize that you need walls and dude standing there to keep bears out, right? I mean, it's just like intellectually, you have to know that. And as somebody more manly on the right, you have to understand that a non-empathetic society leads to rape and pillage. You know what I mean? Like we don't want that
Yeah.
either. Obviously, we all have people that we care about that we don't want to get injured or abused as well. So, you know, seeing the benefit of this, and it's of a very natural relationship between masculinity and femininity, rage and empathy, or whatever the fuck, or aggression rather, not rage, aggression and empathy, is something that we should look at and say, okay, so how do we get those kind of things? And having strong, capable, and honest and loyal men is the very first thing you have to be concerned with, right? Because you can't do all the other stuff without that. You can't. There's not safety provided to do all this other stuff without that. And the fact that people have differing opinions. Sometimes, like the neo-Marxists at the Frankfurt School were upset that Marxism never took hold, and their excuse was that capitalism was just too cushy, which is an odd complaint. Like, oh, capitalism did too good of a job, so nobody accepted our bullshit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good point. They don't realize they're making it, but it is a good point, right? That all of this stuff that people actually want to do in real life, and when they're not just miserable and complaining, requires these institutions, and at the front of them, aggressive men who are willing to defend them. So it's like we better goddamn be doing that stuff and producing those people, and certainly not denigrating them or making them to feel like they don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's this clip from The Daily Show from years ago where one of the anchors goes to Berkeley and he's interviewing people. He's on the campus and he's like, "Wouldn't it be great if we had an organization that protected our rights to speak about what we want to speak about?" And this college kid's like, "Yeah, we need that. Why don't we have that?" And it's just a lack of understanding, I think, of appreciation for the military. To me, the military, it's not perfect, right?
Mm,
But I look at it like it's the greatest force for good in the
mm,
world. I mean, we've done some amazing things, defeated the
mm,
Nazis. Yeah, there's been some missteps along the way. The adventures in Afghanistan and Iraq, we could debate all day. Could it have been done differently? I think so, but
sure.
really, it's amazing what we have, and so we got to stand up for it. And the real values and what it actually is, I think, needs to be represented in social media. It needs to be represented in the movies we watch. So that's something I keep going back to Top Gun Maverick, but when you look at the structure of the squadron, to me it represented like what I saw when I
Mm,
was in. Like there's minorities, there's women, absolutely, but there's a lot of other people, there's a lot of white guys flying fighter jets, and that's okay. We don't need to pretend like that's not a thing. Like it takes all of us. It takes everybody's perspective, and really it should be based on merit.
mm,
And if it's not based on merit, then you know, people are going to die.
yeah.
And I think it shouldn't take, crashing a jet or crashing an airliner or whatever to realize, hey, we got to just go back to merit. We got to go
Mm,
back to who's the best. You could be black, white, purple. We don't care. Men, women, doesn't matter. Like just be really good at your job, and then let's put those people in the positions that are, flying fighter jets into combat, protecting troops from above, or that are flying you from San Diego to New York, that make sure there's like really good pilots. Like I don't know where we kind of lost that, but I feel like it's coming back where everybody's like, all right, let's get a little more common sense. I mean, maybe that's just the people I hang out with,
yeah.
but I feel like it's kind of coming back into culture,
Mm.
with things like what Jack Carr is doing, like, the series that he's created. It's amazing. I think everybody's feels that and wants more of it.
Yeah, Jack is. It's actually. It's funny you brought that up. Jack's a good friend of mine, but it's there.
Nice.
He is. That is an example of the inverse of this that proves the fact that it's true. So, um, the entertainment industry is not super receptive to Jack's politics. I'm putting that fucking as in the most genteel way I possibly can. But there are a lot of people in Hollywood who think like him. It's not they're not all crazy, or they're just not all Democrats, to be honest. They're just people that like doing what they do. There used to
Sure.
be an organization in LA called FOA, Friends of Abe, It was like friends of Abe Lincoln. Nick Searcy, if you're familiar with him, was the last president. I don't know if it's still going on or not, but the last time I checked, he was the president. But he played the chief in Justified. He was Raylan Gibbons' boss in Justified. If
Okay.
that tells you who he is, but yeah, Jack has given a vehicle to a lot of these people who are conservative folk, like Chris Pratt, for example. He's a conservative hunter from Washington. It's not a big
Oh,
deal. You know what I mean? Who
yeah.
fucking cares? He's a good
Yeah.
actor. I like the way he acts, and I'm glad that he doesn't like he wears his faith on his sleeve, but he doesn't talk about politics. And
Yeah.
I appreciate both of those things. But Jack gave a lot of these people a vehicle to just be openly themselves, because not because of who he is, but because the work is good. That's the
The
fucking
work is
point,
good.
right? The work is
Yeah.
good and people like it, and as such, you can just go there, be yourself, like believe whatever you want, but you're producing good work, so nobody cares. That should be the standard for it, right? There's nobody standing at flight school trying to block out minorities and shit. It's like, no, if you can fucking do it, you can do it. We need all the help we can get over here, dude. Like there's
100%.
no version of it's different with infantry stuff because there's strength and bone density issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's something that you just like. It's hard to overcome. It's very hard to overcome for a
for
female.
sure.
But between races, it's a complete non-factor. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
nobody's in a gunfight and they're from the South, and some black dude shows up to back them up, and they're like, "Oh no, man, I'm good. I'm just gonna get killed." You know what I mean? It's fucking
Yeah.
stupid. Nobody thinks like that. If your work output is good, nobody should care about any of your immutable characteristics. It's such a weird way to think about life.
100%. Yeah. And whoever it is, right? The powers that be that want people to be divided, whatever they're gaining from
Mm,
that. I think that's what has kind of created this conversation where everything becomes controversial. But really, when it comes down to the military, the beauty of it is its performance, its meritocracy. And I love that about fighter aviation in particular. It really did come down to meritocracy.
mm,
Who was going to be the best person for this position? Who was going to keep everybody safe? And that's something that I feel like is a resurgence in society now. And when I think about what people want, people are smart. People can watch you, and you know this, with you have a successful
mm,
podcast. People can feel if you're bullshitting them or not. And I feel like the thing that people are craving now is authenticity, vulnerability, and accountability. They want to see that. And if you're not authentic, if you're some social justice thing that's being thrown out there, I think it's really now at a point where everyone's like, okay, yeah, this feels weird. Like, I don't want to feel weird. I want to feel authentic. I want to be able to be vulnerable and see someone else who's willing to be vulnerable, and then someone who's accountable. If you make a mistake or something goes wrong, like we want accountability. And I think that's the beauty of, when I see veterans that are being successful, that's a superpower that I feel is being brought to the cultural narrative now.
mm.
You're in a position where you can have these real conversations that people feel your authenticity and they want that and they're craving it in movies as well. And that's why a lot of these veterans that have gone into the movie world and are creating content. There's a movie out there called Homestead. Jeff Kirkham, he's a
I know
former
Jeff.
Green Beret. Have you ever heard of Homestead?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great movie. I mean,
Mm,
it's a prepper, like into the world, in a way, like basically a nuke goes off, and
mm,
now here's what happens to society. And that really gets down to the nitty-gritty of authenticity. And at that point, not at that point, all these other narratives that don't have authenticity, those really don't apply because it's survival. It's building society from the core like basics of like how do you treat each other? How do you support each other? How do you do your part? We've got doctors, we've got special operators. I'm probably going to be the one that really has to redefine myself because at that point there's going to be no fighter jets around. But I just love this resurgence of let's get back to the basics. Let's get authentic. Let's talk about what things we feel in our heart actually matter in our lives and that we want to feel with our families, with our friends. And so I'm excited, man. I'm really excited for the future when it comes to content,
mm.
media, with veterans having a big place in this space now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. Jack's one of them. Ray Mendoza, obviously, who's worked with Jack before and made Warfare. And yeah, Jeff,
Yeah.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that was based on his first novel, Black Autumn. He was writing it while we were at Black Rifle together in Salt Lake City back in the day. I think he was just starting to
Awesome.
work on it back in the day. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, so
and
you were
he
there for the start of it. That's
yeah,
cool.
and he runs Ready Man and all that other stuff. Like a just a it's people say prepper in a pejorative way. It's like, when the fuck has somebody been prepared and that been a bad thing? You'll have to
Yeah, I
figure
know.
that for me.
That's funny too, right? That's been spun as a bad thing, but again, I think that's shifting too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people. So, my girl's got her little prepper kit at the house, right?
Nice.
And she's not stupid. She's not planning it's a bug in, not a bug out, because that's almost exclusively what it'll ever be. But
Yeah.
like all of her other friends, some of whom are political, some of whom are not, are into that shit now because of her. It's just like, yeah, it makes sense. Why would you not do that?
It's a
Anyways,
bipartisan issue. Be
yeah,
ready, be
yeah,
prepared.
yeah. Food and water. Turns out it's bipartisan. Tell me about. We got to get out of here in a sec, but tell me about your channel on YouTube. You're very successful, like 450,000 subs or something like that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I started it. I did a reaction to Top Gun Maverick a few years back, and just kind of again, I felt like this. I felt like America believed in the fighter pilot again, and there was this authentic wave that was coming over entertainment and what people wanted their kids to watch, what they wanted to watch, what they wanted to feel in their lives. And so I started with that reaction, and then I just kept going. I kept talking about my experiences as a fighter pilot, flying for the Thunderbirds, flying F-15Es in combat, and some of the raw human emotions I felt through that experience, some of the connections I made. And I just started doing videos on the systems, the people, the tech. I really believe that technology and innovative in the defense sector is crucial. It's not only going to save, protect Americans, but it's going to save the lives of the operators that are on the front lines doing all this stuff.
Mm,
And so it's kind of a transition from me doing reactions, kind of looking at fighter jets like sports cars, which I still do. I love doing videos like that. But now I'll intertwine current events, a little bit of light geopolitics, just kind of giving people some things they're not going to find on CNN and Fox. Uh, I want to give people the perspective of an operator,
mm,
having worked with, different teams all throughout the special operations, special forces community, and then, flying fast jets in high stakes situations. I want to share that mindset with people. I hope that I can light people up for the military. There's roughly 2,075,000 members of active duty, guard, reserves. I want to be that beacon of like, this is how badass those people are. And you can take and infuse a little bit of what they've done and the sacrifices they've made and the mindset they have, the authenticity that they have that, only high stakes combat situations can kind of create in a human. I want to kind of give people that aren't in that world a little piece of that and show people that I think the US military is the greatest force for good on the planet. Again, not perfect. I get it. But I want people to come to my channel, be entertained, be
mm.
lit up, have fun, and hopefully walk away with a better understanding of what's going on. A lot of the videos right now are, a few in the past month have been on the cartels,
Mm.
the U.S. military versus the cartels. This is a whole new mission, in a sense, not fully, but being designated as cartels being designated as foreign terrorist organizations opens up a lot of different systems. It opens up my community, the fighter jet community, to take down like fentanyl flown into our country every day and save Americans' lives the next week or the next day. This is amazing. So this is stuff that our military can do to protect our citizens. And
Mm.
I want my channel to be a place where people can come and just get an inside scoop on that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Very cool. The stuff that's going on down there is hilarious to me.
I
Um,
bet. I bet.
it's just like we've tried we tried the first two ways, so now it's the third option now. Like you this shit's gonna be over.
Have you
Um,
seen that meme where it's like prior presidents saying like let's negotiate and the terrorist is like
oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
blow shit up,
yeah,
and then it's Trump saying I'm gonna blow shit up and the terrorists are like let's negotiate.
yeah. It
Whole
turns
different
out
shift.
all you need is to not be a pussy. Who knew?
I mean, sometimes force is the only thing that speaks to certain people. I get it. It'd
Mm,
be nice if everybody could just sit down and talk, and that's a great force shouldn't be number one, right? It shouldn't be the first thing you go to. But when you've tried to negotiate over and over again, at some point, you got to walk softly and carry a big stick.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Especially if you're the leader of the free world, for Christ's sake.
yeah.
Well, look, I appreciate you coming today. Everybody go check out Max Afterburner USA on YouTube. Ryan Bodenheim in real life, or Neo, as it were. Thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Great talking to you, brother. Thanks for what you're doing.
Of course, yeah. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.